What's the matter, Hangman? Can't sleep?
Cowboy shit!
I need my older brother!
Who the fuck is Rip Garrison?
You are now listening to Dark Side of the Elite with Randy Charpentier, Eric Reed, and Matt Roberts.
2006 is when I called into the Stern Show, and I knew nothing about it. My friend, I can't say I didn't know anything about it. I saw his movie, which made me a fan of his, kind of. But then I remember seeing, if you remember in Canada, we didn't get his E show. Even though we got E, we didn't get his E show. We got on the Buffalo Fox affiliate, we got his 1 hour Saturday show.
At 12 midnight or something. That was at midnight.
Like after Mad TV would come on, right?
Right.
And so that's all I kind of knew about Howard, you know what I mean? And then my friend, he was like telling me he moved to Sirius Satellite Radio, and he was showing me, like, 1 week I was in his car and he was showing me a bunch of segments, and I'm like, yo, this humor, this immature humor is just like mine, right? And then I randomly called in, and I thought there was rules to calling in to. I didn't know what Sirius Satellite was. I thought it was just like another free radio thing. I didn't know it was a paid thing, right? So when I called in, I thought I had to lie about having a Sirius subscription because I thought he wouldn't take my call, and he got confused because he thought I was illegally streaming it on some website. You know what I mean? Because like I didn't realize what chain of events I fucking brought on, because he's like, how are you listening to me? I go, on the internet. I guess made a guess. It's like, wait a second. He goes, they're not doing that on the internet. He goes, I'll get to the bottom of this. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of confused him, and then I kind of wanted to like also, dude, I was like in a bad way during those, like, I mean, you could say I'm in a bad day the last decade or so, but during that time, like, I was sick of just like doing regular jobs and all that, and I wanted to really just become fucking famous. It was like a really bad thing. I didn't think much of my fucking life. So I called in, and I was desperate. And here's the story. When I was because MySpace was around there, so I was always contacting different celebrities, even if it wasn't them or not, just putting out like, oh, I respect you, you're an influence to me and all that. I remember I emailed Lance Storm to get a job at his school. I go, can I help set up the rings or something like that? He's like, all I have is space for wrestlers. And I go, you know what? Maybe if I just kill myself and that'll be the end of it. I left it like that. I felt so bad about it. I wonder what his reaction was to that shit. But I remember, like, you know what I mean? I was like all over the map during those times and all that, man.
But then with Howard, though, going back to the Howard, he just kept you on, right? And you could hear the radio on the telephone too, right? So
yeah, well, yeah. You so the way that, because I didn't have a Sirius subscription, and by the way, the first month in Sirius Canada, we didn't get apparently Howard wasn't available on the Sirius Canada. They finally made it like in February, where we finally obviously got it. But the way that I would always listen is calling in. Even if you didn't go to me, I would enjoy just staying at home, because I was like in my bum phase, obviously, right? And I would just be sitting there smoking weed and fucking just listening to him on the show. If he went to me, he went to me. And there was a potential there for him to, like, he was intrigued by me. But then, like, I wasn't bringing enough to the table at first, because I couldn't listen to the show afterwards, right? I didn't even know how to download it and all that. So one time I called in 2006 after a couple of months of not calling in, and I dropped my paper of topics that I want to talk about, and then I couldn't get it on time, and then he goes, Hanzi, and I'm like, oh yeah, I just want to say, what up, man? How have you been? I haven't talked to you in a long time. And he got really mad at that. He's like, what, am I your best friend or something? And he hung up, and that disencouraged me from calling in the remainder of the year. And then people in my life, I guess, like, you know, who I felt like a lot of people in my life were kind of encouraging me to kind of do it. And like, they wouldn't let me know that maybe they're connected in some level, like they're being contacted. And I remember, like, the way that they would entice me, 'cause I stopped calling in. And I know that Howard would do. Howard know. I feel like Howard, whenever he takes a liking to someone, he knows their interest. So the way that he would try to fucking grab me into calling in my personal opinion, would have wrestlers on. Like,
that's what I was.
He
That's
used to have him on regularly in the K-Rock days, but
yeah.
he barely ever had him on during Sirius during the time that I was on. I think he did that on purpose because he didn't want to fucking do that. You know what I mean? But the time that I gave up on trying to call in, he he would have John Cena on. He had Chris Kanyon doing a whole story. Ric Flair called in to confront Kanyon about, Chris Kanyon putting out that
Yeah.
Vince McMahon fired him for being gay and all of that. You know what I mean? It seemed like there was
Kurt
like some way
Angle.
to.
I think Kurt Angle they did with you, right?
Yeah,
Too.
he after a while, once in a while, he would fucking have people on like here and there, right? But I remember like that was a way to entice me. And then in 2007, I got Howard TV, and then I thought that was I still didn't get a subscription until like maybe April or May of 2007, and then I had this infamous call in I remember the date actually, May 14, 2007, where he gave me 30 minutes in the beginning of the show and to indulge in my life, whatever. About I was calling in to go, I know this hot chick that would want to come down to the studio, but what happened is my mom interrupted the conversation, like you can hear in the background, and I was talking to her, and then that's when he goes, Hanzi, fuckface, and then it started this whole thing where and then I kind of became a contributor, kind of in a way, without really realizing that I was actually being a contributor. You know what I mean? Because they took a liking to, like, I remember like a lot of the staff members didn't really like me because I was behind the scenes. Like this didn't play it on the air, but I think Howard liked my enthusiasm. That I was sending him notes about my life and ideas that he can use, and I was always doing like essay forms to Gary and all that. And I think he took a liking to that. And I remember Benji in 2008 contacted me and goes, "Oh, Benji, the head writer of the Howard Stern show, if anyone doesn't know that, he contacted me and goes, hey, you want to be an intern for the show?" And I was like, I don't want to go to college, bro. I don't really. I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to struggle to be paying, rent and college and all that. I'm sure there would have been an under the table method for me to get through because it just seemed like a way that they wanted to get me on the show, but I didn't want to do the intern thing. You know what I mean? So, and then eventually like I got on the show and all that.
Yeah, it's sort of. I remember that date. I didn't know it was that date, but I remember that date that you're talking about, and I guess how it snowballed progressively from it. Because then you were on like 2-3 times a week, right? For a little part, or like 1 or 2 times a week.
This is all my theory because you ask Howard Stern fans, all they'll ever tell you is that Hanzi is just a caller, he's nothing more. He's just a delusioned piece of shit. But what happened was, do you remember the first appearance I made, the Biggest Loser contest?
Yeah.
Where I came in, that was my only appearance like live in the studio. I went for a tour in the first couple in that summer. But what happened was I was so embarrassed by doing horrible because I wasn't stoned that I didn't want to call in, even though Artie was contacting me, like telling me, and I was like, oh, I have doubts about being like a regular character, and Artie's like, are you fucking stupid? Goes, call in, you fucking idiot! Like, what are you doing? And then the thing is, I think Howard would always kind of show interest. Like, oh my God, Hanzi is calling you? What's going on, right? He would be kind of interested. And I think I kept backing out. I didn't want to, I was kind of like having doubts. And I think like in 2009, I was supposed to get my quote unquote main event push. But if you remember in 2009, you didn't really hear me as often, maybe a couple of times, because I felt like he was getting really, really pissed off that I wasn't doing my potential. So he kind of lost faith in me until the end of 2009. Where I started fucking not taking my meds and I became crazy on the air, kind of. And that's 2010 is when I started really becoming the fucking character. And then after like me not being able to do the interviews or going out for interviews like Stuttering John did or whatever, I remember I had a blowout in the end of 2010. Where I was like really like, and it's also because people in my life were keeping secrets from me. I felt really fucking paranoid about everything, and he was trying to like go, hey, maybe you should go. Like, I think he was trying to say that I should still be on the show, but you should go and look for other options. And I thought he was kind of, I was worried that he was getting rid of me, and I think because like Jason Agnew was trying to approach me on social media at times, going, "Hey, call into the law," and I felt like if I call into the law, will he get mad that I'm calling into another show? It's one thing if I'm calling Busted Open Radio because they're on Sirius, whatever, right? But I was like worried about that, and then also like if I became a character on the law, I thought I had to start from the bottom again and take more shit from other people that I was already taking from Stern Show. So I was already like kind of like distant from everyone else, whatever. So in 2011, I got into the whole conspiracy thing. And I personally always thought that, like I'm not talking on the surface. No one's gonna know what the hell we're talking about. I always felt like behind the scenes they plan who's gonna get pushed by a certain level. And I got into the conspiracy stuff where I stopped calling in again in 2011 for a bit because I was really mad about the lies that were being told and what I would have to do to get into it. And even even CM Punk, he won't admit this probably, but like CM Punk was I feel like I was supposed to be like part of the class of personalities that were getting their push in 2011, whether it be in wrestling, radio, comedy, and all that. Like, I feel like there's like a class of people when they get quote unquote your push, and I think CM Punk was like kind of always kind of a fan of mine. People told me, and I don't know that's for a fact, but
Didn't he say
ahead.
on one? Didn't he ask about you on? Who was the one that asked about you on one of the shows? I remember a wrestler saying, "Where's Hanzi?" Do you remember that? What I'm talking about? They're like, where's Hanzi? Why can't I talk? Was it a wrestler or was it somebody else?
It was Mike Tyson, wasn't it?
Maybe yes. You're right. And it was roughly that time too.
No. It was Mike Tyson thing was in 2013. No, but this is what happened. This is what happened. Because CM Punk became the Messiah to me, right? I would basically only look at CM Punk's Twitter feed just to interact with CM Punk, and he would be like like not fully interacting with me, but he would be like entertaining my tweets by just tweeting out random things anyways, right? And I personally think that I personally think that behind the scenes, they were trying to get me to have a confrontation with CM Punk so it could lead on to something on the Stern Show because when he was on Stern's channels, the Abe Cannon show, I had 2 opportunities to talk to him. And I dropped the ball because I didn't want to get into a confrontation, but the first time before Money in the Bank, I asked him, what is Cole Cabana gonna get signed? You know what I mean? I didn't want to make it about me be obsessing over Punk. And then the second time was when he went on that Chris Brown rant, and I was kind of taking offense to it because I'm like, how can you judge a fucking? And again, I'm not saying Chris Brown was right, but I'm just saying how can you be in the wrestling industry and look down at fucking Chris Brown? And not like your hero Stone Cold Steve Austin, for God's sake. You know what I mean? That guy is you know what I mean? So he was on Abe Cannon show again, and I called in to ask about Cole Cabana. I didn't want to get into a confrontation about it, but he tried to start something with me by going, "Oh, Hanzi?" He goes, "I thought that was a girl's name," and I think I was supposed to snap, but I was afraid to. And then he would take subliminal jabs at me about, oh, people just don't want to, people think that selling, becoming bigger is going to be a bad thing. I can tell that he was taking things at me because when I would take jabs at him without even tagging him, he blocked me. So obviously he knew I was taking jabs at him, right? But you know what I mean? So like that's when it became. Then in 2012, I mustered up the courage to call back into Stern again, and that's when I got into the whole Illuminati thing where I was like, you gotta sell your fucking soul. And so I became kind of a character, you know what I mean? And I was calling into Artie's show, but I was trying to walk away from the Stern show multiple times, you know what I mean? It felt.
Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. I'm talking way too much, man. I'm sorry, man.
No. That's what you're here for. No, because I remember when, like, what you're saying, and they sort of like try to drag you back with that birthday. And good for you, Hanzi. The birthday party special.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, that was a few years back into it. I think my 2014 run of calls were my best years of calls. Like they were probably the most energetic, whatever, and all that. You know what I mean? But I even in 2013, after they promised me my show, and then they canceled the show last minute. And what pissed me off was that they were gonna have me do a show on WrestleMania weekend. Like
Yeah.
the Monday of WrestleMania week after WrestleMania weekend, and they wouldn't even let me give me free tickets to go to WrestleMania or the festivities in New York. And I was like and again, I know people get favored under the table. I think my mistake was bringing it to the surface. You know what I mean? But and you know what I mean? And so I felt fucked because it was supposed to happen in February of 2013. They canceled it. Then they go April, but then they wanted to do it in Toronto at a studio, and at the same time they wanted to bring Howard TV into my fucking house in my basement, which was all like really like I'm not proud of my environment because it was like all like smoke stains and all that type of stuff. Whatever. I repainted now. And, you know what I mean? I don't really smoke as much in the basement, obviously. You know what I mean? Like I had the windows open time to time and all that. But like, you know what I mean? But like I didn't want anyone to come in. And I think
Your
that
space.
and then I pissed them off with that. So then I stopped calling in 2013, like midway through, and I was calling into Artie's show on DirecTV during that time way more. And then afterwards, I think part of me feels like because I was getting to the conspiracy stuff, but I was too selfish to look at the grand view. I think that they wanted me to connect because like there's mystery between the whole Artie and Howard thing, and I think they wanted me to connect the kayfabe, but instead of connecting to the kayfabe, I was like, oh, Artie and Howard are really friends behind the scenes, and all that suicide stuff was all a work. Like he actually did it, but it was actually more organized. But I think like I was supposed to be the one that cracked the code that. I think you know how they say Artie left. Howard fired Artie. Personally, I think Artie actually quit, and I think all the time that Artie was like lashing out, I think Artie was always trying to get fired because I personally believe that because if Howard didn't want Artie to be high on the show or be a slob on the fucking show, he would have like really fucking fired him for real. He enabled that shit so fucking much, right? That I personally think that all Artie's freakouts were attempts to fucking get fired, basically.
That's what he used to be. And you know from now on that his name will be